Hello, everyone. This is Jeff with Mississippi in the Civil War. It's been a while, I know, and I am very sorry. Boy, the holidays really took a toll. It's been very busy here at my household, and I have just had so much going on. I had other things to do, and my family came first, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But with the holidays being nearly over now, I can get back to more content for the channel, and I hope you're going to like it. I've got some good stuff coming up, and today I'm going to be talking about the Battle of Franklin, Tennessee, a subject which I have talked about in the past, but it's just one of my favorite battles. So I hope you'll bear with me. I wanted to do this closer to the anniversary of the battle, but again, life and the holidays got in the way, so this has been delayed for a bit. But I call this episode "The Last Ditch of the War in the West: Captain Samuel B. Watts and the Battle of Franklin, Tennessee, November 30th, 1864." And our story actually begins a couple of decades after the Battle of Franklin. In August 1886, Samuel B. Watts, and this is a post-war picture of Captain Watts, photograph from the Clarion Ledger, taken in 1931 when he was quite advanced in age. But in August 1886, Samuel B. Watts attended the reunion of the 104th Ohio Infantry, which was held at Myers Lake, Ohio. This event was a very notable occasion for Watts, as he was made an honorary member of the 104th Ohio by unanimous agreement of the veterans of the regiment. Now, this was a rather unusual occurrence because 22 years earlier, Captain Samuel B. Watts had been an officer in the 10th Mississippi Infantry and had been captured at the Battle of Franklin, Tennessee by members of the 104th Ohio. And this story is how Myers ended up getting captured and how he ended up at a reunion of the 104th Ohio and becoming an honorary member of that Union regiment. When Watts was captured, he surrendered his sword to Captain Shepard M. Knapp, commander of Company I, 104th Ohio Infantry. Giving up the sword was very difficult for Watts because this blade had a lot of meaning for the captain. It had originally belonged to Captain Thomas I. Sharp, who had been his company commander in Company H of the 10th Mississippi, when Watts served under him as lieutenant. Captain Sharp was killed in the fighting around Atlanta on July 28, 1864. Then after Thomas's death, his brother, Brigadier General Jacob H. Sharp, who commanded the brigade to which the 10th Mississippi belonged, presented the sword to Captain Watts upon his promotion to captain of Company H. As the rebel captain turned over the blade, he asked a big favor of his Union captor. He said, at the end of the war, if they were both still living, he asked that the sword be returned. And Captain Knapp readily agreed to this request. And as you're going to see, it was going to be a few years, though, before this would take place. Now, I've been studying the relative positions of the 10th Mississippi and the 104th Ohio at the Battle of Franklin, and I'm not really quite sure how Captain Watts ended up surrendering to Captain Knapp. As you can see from the arrows here, the 10th Mississippi was over on the Confederate left here in Sharp's brigade, fighting right in this area, whereas the 104th Ohio was at the very center of the Union line. So they would not have directly contacted each other during the actual fighting. The only thing I can figure is that perhaps the 104th Ohio had sent out men to capture prisoners, or somehow some of the men of the 10th Mississippi had, in the course of the fighting, had gotten detached from their regiment and ended up drifting off to the right and getting captured by the 104th Ohio. In the chaos of battle, I mean, there's no telling. It could have been any number of ways they ended up coming into contact with each other, and it's without more documentation, it's really impossible to say. But nonetheless, they did end up coming in contact, and Captain Watts was captured by the 104th Ohio. And regardless of where they may have fought on the battlefield, both the 10th Mississippi and the 104th Ohio saw very heavy fighting at the Battle of Franklin. Brigadier General Jacob Sharp, who commanded the brigade to which the 10th Mississippi belonged, said of Franklin, "We were within 30 paces of the enemy works when the darkness was lighted up as if by electric display. The enemy was there to greet us. Our brave boys gave a yell, scrambled through the locust grove, and went into the works." Simon Mayer of Natchez, who also served in the 10th Mississippi, wrote his own account of the Battle of Franklin, and he said, "Our high-pressure brigade passed square through the famous locust thicket abattis. Franklin, to my mind, was the bloodiest fight of the war. Anyhow, by the Army of Tennessee. The blood was ankle deep. I stepped into ditches and blood ran over the top of my shoes." And he was right. That fighting in the ditches there at Franklin went on for hours after dark. And the 10th Mississippi had the casualties to prove it. They had 13 killed, 35 wounded, and 14 missing at the Battle of Franklin. For the 104th Ohio, the fighting where they were at in the center of the Union line was equally fierce. And this is a great photo I found online. This is a good wartime photo of Company I of the 104th Ohio. This is just one company out of 10 that made up the 104th Ohio. But in a post-war history of the 104th Ohio, they wrote about Franklin. "The fight at Franklin commenced on the 30th of November at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and lasted until 10 in the evening. This was the most severe engagement the regiment ever participated in, and its loss was 60 killed and wounded. Lieutenant Kimball, who lost his life, fought desperately, throwing hatchets and axes into the seething mass of rebels in his front until a bullet struck him down." That's the kind of fighting it was. It was nasty, vicious, and close quarters fighting, excuse me, for literally hours on end. Now, it took a few decades, but in 1886, Captain Knapp, and this is a post-war picture of August J. Ricks, first lieutenant of Companies E's and F of the 104th Ohio. He was going to be the one that actually presented the sword to Captain Watts. But in 1886, Captain Knapp made good on his promise to return the sword. He contacted Captain Watts at his home in Meridian, Mississippi, and arranging for him to attend the 104th Ohio's reunion, they planned to pass the blade back to him. A.J. Ricks, a lieutenant in the 104th Ohio, made the presentation. And he told Captain Watts that Knapp had, quote, "asked me on his behalf to return this sword, so worthily borne by a gallant foe, and so honorably lost in what was almost literally the last ditch of the War of the West. You won the right to reclaim it because of your gallantry on the field when it was fairly lost and won. Take it as the gift of a brave Union soldier and keep it as new evidence of the fact that forever hereafter and always heretofore, the brave soldiers of the North will bear as they have always borne respect and goodwill for the brave soldiers of the South who have manfully accepted the results of the war." Now, after Watts took possession of the sword, he was called on to make a few remarks. And he told his fellow veterans, "I can scarcely realize that I stand today in the midst of men in whose midst I stood nearly 22 years ago. I was on that memorable occasion your most unwilling captive. Today I am your willing captive. I am here in response to a most pressing and I am sure hearty invitation from your worthy president, who expressed a desire to return to me in person the sword which has just been handed me, with an accompaniment of beautiful words from the lovely daughter, unborn at the date of the surrender of the sword, of a brave and noble father, in redemption of a promise made when he received it on the battlefield of Franklin. And they had the sword engraved at the throat and other parts of the scabbard on this portion of the sword here. It was transcribed, surrendered by Captain S.B. Watts, 10th Mississippi Infantry, CSA, 1864, to S.M. Knapp, 104th OVI, at Franklin, Tennessee, November 30th, 1864. And then on the other side, it said, "Return with the compliments of S.M. Knapp, August 12th, 1886. But Captain Watts went on to say, "I compromised no principle for which I fought in my conduct of this occasion. I was not in the army of conquest nor invasion. We fought for what we believed to be right and defense of our homes and institutions. You recognized our honesty of purpose and our bravery of our soldiers. When I became your prisoner, I was treated by true soldiers as a soldier. I again thank you most heartily for your kind reception and bid you one and all goodbye. I hope to meet you again on another reunion occasion." And I don't know if Captain Watts ever attended another reunion of the 104th Ohio. I couldn't find any indications that he did, but I do know it was certainly not for the lack of opportunities. Captain Watts lived to be quite old. He passed away in 1931, dying January 8th of 1931. He's buried in Rose Hill Cemetery in Meridian, Mississippi. And this is his stone at the cemetery. And you're probably wondering, well, what happened to Captain Watts' sword? Well, I'm happy to say that the sword was given to the Mississippi Department of Archives and History by some of Captain Watts' descendants, and that sword is in the collections today. So it has survived and is a testament to the honor and bravery of the men of the 10th Mississippi and the 104th Ohio Infantries. And I don't believe that it is on display at the moment, but hopefully one day soon it will be, because it's a wonderful sword with a great story behind it. And that concludes this episode. This is just a short one, but I will be coming back with you with more new content very shortly. In fact, I'm going to try and get out another episode in the next day or two, and I will see you then. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please click the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, because I'm planning on putting out some really good content in the coming year, and I hope you'll be around to enjoy it. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And everyone have a really happy holidays, and I'll see you in the new year. Goodbye.